Hey everybody, so this is a recording of a presentation that I gave at the League of Innovations conference in Seattle in 2020 on flipping a classroom. So this whole presentation will kind of be a walkthrough on how a flipped classroom works from the viewpoint of a student to coming into class, and just kind of creates the flow of how that works, as well as going to highlight some of the technologies that I used in a flipped classroom, highlight some other concepts of a flipped classroom, and just kind of how it has worked for our program. Hey everybody, my name is Ben Tacey. I am the program director for the EMS program of Pierpont Community and Technical College. So here's my name, picture of myself so you can understand or begin. Ah, crap. Hey everybody, my name is Ben Tacey. I am the program director for the Emergency Medical.
Do you think we should meet?
You've got mail.
Hey everybody, my name is Ben Tacey. I am the program director for the Emergency Medical Services program of Pierpont Community and Technical College. Here is a picture of me. This is the best selfie I could come up with, so we can get a little bit of face-to-face time for face value, so you know who I am before we get to meet for the first time face to face. So here's my accolades: Master Education, National Registry Paramedic, and Mobile Critical Care Paramedic. Critical Care Paramedic. Other big things. Here is my email, ben.tacey@pierpont.edu. At this time, you need to write this down because this is my primary means of communication. Also, here is my office phone number, 304-367-4501. A little bit about myself. We'll start with 3 truths and a lie. So here are 4 things, 3 of them are true. I was born and raised in West Virginia. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. I used to be a garbage man, and I once qualified for an arena cross race in Las Vegas. So which of those do you think is the lie? Was I born somewhere than West Virginia? Do I have other brothers and sisters? Was I really a garbage man? And did I really qualify for that championship race in Las Vegas? Well, hey, I am an only child. My parents got it right the first time. Now, the educational bio about myself. I have an associate's degree from Pierpont in emergency medical services as a paramedic. Also, I have my undergrad in occupational safety and health with a concentration in fire science from Columbia Southern University, and then have my master's degree with a concentration in online and distance learning from Fairmont State University. I kind of did things a little bit in a backwards order. I got my undergraduate first, went back to school once I started working in the fire service, got my associates whenever I got my paramedic, and then went on later to get my master's degree. My role at the college is as program coordinator. I'm also held the rank of assistant professor. I have 11 total years in the EMS field, and I've spent 6 years in education and training. Biggest priority in my life is my family. As you see here, my beautiful wife, Kristen, and our 3 kids. This is a pretty recent picture, so my little baby Kennedy, she's grown up just a little bit more now. So my daughter Kennedy, my oldest son Connor, and our youngest son Caden. I like to refer to him as the youngest son and not the middle child. For fun, outside of my normal chaotic busy life schedule, I like to spend some time relaxing, riding my motorcycle, and just hanging out with my big furball dog. This is my big ol' 75-pound golden doodle named Chloe. And yes, what you see in her mouth, that is a toy pacifier. So if you have any questions, please contact me via email. If you didn't write it down on the first slide, be sure to write it down here now. Save it in your smart gadgets, whatever you need. Contact me, ben.tacey@pierpont.edu. I look forward to meeting you all face to face.
Oh, back to school, to prove to Dad that I'm not a fool. I got my lunch packed up, my boots tied tight. I hope I don't get in a fight. Oh, back to school, back to school, back to school.
So now imagine you've went through that work that has been assigned to you while you're at home as a student, and now you're actually showing up for class. So this would be the beginning of the face-to-face portion of that flipped classroom. So I can generally begin my classes with a formative assessment using a gamified quiz system called Kahoot. I believe some of you at other faculty developments have played Kahoot. It's gained a lot of familiarity, so I believe this one's a lot more familiar to most people. So basically the Kahoot you can build as a multiple choice system. You can build the quizzes any way you want to. So in this, given you can post an image in there, you could post text, you could post pictures, embed YouTube videos, a variety of things you can put in there to replace this media of the picture. Then what you would see on the right is the students. So we know that our students have a hard time staying off their phones, so we can allow them to use their phones to stay engaged in the class. So when they come in, we'll assign them a formative assessment on all the material that they should have been reviewing at home. So that flip part, all that lower level tiered information, that's what we're going to evaluate them on, is evaluating them on all of their homework. Okay, so you can see the question pops up on the screen, which is what's on the left, and then a student's on their phone, they just log in with a simple PIN number in the app or web browser, and then all they see is the respective answers on their phones. The students get very competitive with this because the faster the answer, the more points that they get. So they make it a race. So at the end, it's a tally of points to see who did the best. Now we can use that and we can export the results. After the Kahoot is done, it's saved as a spreadsheet, so we can assign that as a form of grade, or we can use it as informally. The way that we do it is we generally assign it as a quiz, and we kind of use it as an informal tool as well. So that we can kind of use that to help cater our daily lesson plans. So if the students come in and 100% of the class answers a concept correctly, well then you don't need to waste a lot of your curriculum day covering a topic that all the class really seems to understand. Then for other topics that are a little bit more grade than others, you can focus your education towards that. There is a link for a Kahoot that is based on my little icebreaker video that will be linked in the video description within YouTube. Now another way to join in is with EdPuzzle. So EdPuzzle is the program that we use for asynchronous delivery of our didactic material. So basically record a lot of presentations just like this, and then we can host them in EdPuzzle. The students can go into EdPuzzle in an app in the web browser form. It's available on all platforms. The system we have, it is free. You can also sign in any other YouTube videos that are out there from Venmo, Khan Academy, any place. You can assign these in, and then you can embed questions in them. So within EdPuzzle, you can see here, this is what the student would see. So you build this presentation and you can build in a multiple choice question. So as they're going through the video will stop at a benchmark and a question comes up. And that question is just wherever you assign it. Okay, so where you assign that question to is also going to be dependent on what they're going to be able to see. So like on this screen here, you can see that all those little tick marks on the timeline at the bottom, those are where questions or notes or something had been put into it. So this is in the web browser version of editing the videos. Now for app-wise, to edit the videos from the instructor standpoint, you have to do everything in a web browser. The app is for the student to be taking the assignment. Okay, so in this video, you would just pause it wherever you want it to, then you could type your multiple choice question. So with that, you've got options right here of multiple choice questions. You can do open-ended, or you can just put in a note. If you want to link another video in there, you can put in a note, link in a YouTube video, or if you just want to type a note, or if you realize after you've done this all, you said something silly and you misspoke, you can correct yourself in that. Okay, so in this, you could just do your multiple choice question, you key it, and then you would hit save and the video would play, and then wherever else you want to put a question, you just stick it right in there. And then when you finish it, you can assign it. So EdPuzzle is pretty much its own learning management system. So you can assign these videos with due dates and everything. Then with assigning all these videos, you get a grade book as well. So generally what we do is to get credit for any of the presentations, you have to get at least a 70% on the presentation. So if they don't, we have to reset the video and then they have to watch it again to try to obtain a 70% to get credit for it. Then you can see the headers at the top, the videos and their respective due dates. On the left side, the gray box, that is where the students' names would be, but those are blacked out, obviously. So also you might see the red clock images on some of the grades. That would let you know that those grades are late. You also have the ability to export out the gradebook. You can export it to a spreadsheet, so you could do any kind of calculations that you need be for any kind of weighted grades or whatnot. EdPuzzle also has the ability to integrate into multiple learning management systems such as Blackboard, Canvas, and more. Now either take the time now to go to this EdPuzzle link, the edpuzzle.com link as you see here, or at least write this down so you can go into it later. It's a little demo course that's been set up with a really small presentation to just kind of let you see how EdPuzzle will work. There is an app that is available, but is not required to go into. And as I said, you can make EdPuzzle its own learning management system where the students have to sign in, use their student accounts to log into, and whatnot, or you can set it to open. So the one you would demo here, since the link is going to be available to everybody, it is set as an open enrollment course. Otherwise, you have to assign students a course code to allow them to come into the class. Now imagine as a student, you're assigned all of this homework, but you can do it at your own convenience. Not necessarily your own pace, because we're all pretty familiar about what happens with students when we just allow them to have an ultimatum end date. They cram everything at the end. So we generally create a schedule to where our face-to-face class, all the work we're going to cover during that class, all of the flip material that we put online is due the day before that class. So that holds the students accountable, but yet gives them some flexibility to do the assignments on their own time. So a lot of our exams and everything are opened as well. We open those over a broad period of time, generally over a couple days, to allow that student that continued flexibility. But granted, there would be a lot more. So could be, review questions, other quizzes, the introductory material, stuff that you would generally lecture on in the classroom. You're just putting all that online so you can save time in the classroom to really delve deeper into the topics and do more focused work. So we just went through and demoed some really quick examples. We discussed some really basics of flipping and how flipping can work. So we're going to go through a little bit more, delve a little bit deeper into the flipped classroom and how it's improved our EMS program. So traditionally, students come into class, you lecture them, you give them all the introductory material, and then they go home to start working on things. But in this flipped classroom, we give them that flexibility of watching the lecture, everything you're going to say and do face to face, we're putting all that online and then watch that at their own convenience. Because my kind of theory is, why come to the classroom when you could hear me talk at home in your own comfortability, at your own flexible schedule? So then you can come into class and we can do deeper classroom activities and really engage a whole lot more than just being that sage on a stage. So in that delivery model, beforehand they're watching presentations, they're doing quizzes, just kind of that introductory material. During class they're more application, doing in-depth topics, and then afterwards those formative, comprehensive assessments, so their tests. So they're getting some of the basic material up front on their own time. They come into class, we clear up all the topics, make sure that they're engaged, that they're understanding it, and then we're evaluating our processes and how well they've understood everything. So the old model, as I said, are shifting from being that sage on the stage to more that guide on the side. So instead of coming in, just listening to what we have to say face to face, just a lot of time their butts in a seat. When they come in, they're doing more busy work. And I think we can all agree that the kind of students that we're seeing now need more of that busy work, that they're not able to just sit and retain information by listening to a lecture, that they need more of that activity-based classroom. I like to use the analogy of a flipped classroom being kind of like that iceberg. So only about 10% of an iceberg is actually seen outside of the water. So that is the basic stuff. So we give the students the tip of the iceberg in their flipped model. Everything we put online, that's just the tip part. So basing that on Bloom's, the stuff home, that's the remembering and understanding components. Then when they come into class, we're doing the application, the analysis, and then ultimately the evaluation parts using those formative assessments. So with the analogy of the iceberg, let's just dive deeper. So now we've went through two simple versions of doing a flipped classroom. So we did the intro material delivered asynchronously, which would be followed by an informal assessment. So that was the YouTube video that you watched, that was the Icebreaker video that kind of gave a little information about myself, and then when you came to class, the informal assessment was delivered via the Kahoot quiz. And we've also done the intro material with embedded assessments, also delivered asynchronously with the EdPuzzle. So the same way, I could have delivered that Icebreaker video, built that into EdPuzzle, and built those questions that were, your objectives, whatever phrase you want to go with, but your objective questions could have been built into your Kahoot or built into your EdPuzzle, determining on what you're wanting to get out of that. So a couple different ways you can do that. Generally, we always go with the putting everything into EdPuzzle. So we're using that as one type of assessment, and then we will also use the Kahoot just because I feel like if that's a good class icebreaker, it begins a conversation with the students, which is that part of flipping that classroom, to dive deeper and to create that conversation within the classroom. There's some other options and vendors you can use. YouTube and Vimeo, I think everybody's pretty familiar with those. It's just the sites that you can use to host your videos. YouTube is great. It's got some really awesome ability to, especially for ADA compliance, of creating closed captioning, allowing you to easily edit your closed captioning transcripts. It's easily integratable with pretty much everything. It can be used on every device, no apps required. Very, very convenient. Probably the most popular. Then you've got the MOOCs, the massive open online courses, and probably the most famous one is Khan Academy. So Khan Academy, if you haven't used it, check it out. It's great. There's little learning modules you can go through, and a lot of their stuff is just built presentations. A little bit fancier with this was more animation, drawings, and a variety of things. And You can also use those Khan Academy videos to create your EdPuzzle videos. So any kind of video that's really hosted out there, you can use that in EdPuzzle and then just build your own questions into it. So in terms of a learning and management system to embed those questions in, EdPuzzle is probably the most popular, and then there are some other ones such as Play Post-it. I've demoed Play Post-it, like the EdPuzzle a little bit better, and plus at Play Post-it, it's kind of more expensive. Kahoot, also there is Quizlet Live now. Quizlet Live is similar to Kahoot, pretty much the same concept of creating your own quizzes that students can use their phones to respond to, but also Quizlet Live gives kind of an icebreaker feel in the classroom, because when the students come in, they can use Quizlet Live, and then when they log into it, the system will automatically group them, so they have to take quizzes as a group. Whereas Kahoot, it can be one-on-one, or you can do it as a team setup. Another really cool thing about Kahoot is you can assign it as homework. So just like the Kahoot quiz that you would have done, that can be assigned just as a homework setup to where the students can run that on their own time and run it the same way, and you still get the same feedback. You just assign a due date to it. Otherwise, you got to do it face-to-face in class, or if you're doing a Zoom meeting, you can still do it that way too. You can host the Kahoot quiz, provide the code to the students, and then they can do the Kahoot quiz at home. The equipment for doing this, really basic. So the microphone that's pictured here is actually the microphone that I'm using right now. It is just a simple USB plug and play. The only thing that I've done is I've got one of those little foam caps for the top is a little pop filter. So like on my P's aren't as poppy as they would be maybe without it. Really simple setup. I use it on recording different things on my iPad, so if I'm doing some doodles or drawings on the iPad, I can record that in as well, or just using it on my PC, a laptop, anything is just USB powered. Very, very easy. Those run about $100 for a pretty good one. I've used the cheaper ones, but they get a lot of static feedback, don't have as much sensitivity settings as this one is. And this is called a Blue Yeti. Y-E-T-I. So now let's talk a little bit about our program and how this worked. So a lot of this stuff is probably familiar to you since you are Pierpont faculty. So this is some action research I've been doing over the past few years. Okay, so we know that our community college serves approximately 6,000 square miles. Okay, so presenting this at Seattle, this was all dropping to people as community colleges in their area may serve a radius of 15 square miles. So to them, this was huge. Okay, so in our 2019 cohort, our average one-way driving distance for students was 60 miles. Okay, so we have two sections that we do for our flipped classroom. You can come Monday and Wednesday evenings in our cohort, or you can come for a long day on Friday. So that Friday was designed for those students who have those long commutes. So yes, this is the average. There are some students who travel much further than 60 miles one way to come to class. So we began our flip process officially in 2017. Generally, we were doing 12 hours of face-to-face class a week. In class discussion labs, everything kind of integrated. So that was a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings from 6 to 10. So of all the hours we figured up that we spent lecturing, we kind of built all that, flipped it, put all that work online, so then we could preserve all of our time for more hands-on stuff, labs, simulation, which is great because at that same time, accreditation was requiring more hands-on tracing and tracking of everything. So we decided to go to just 8 hours a week. So we did Monday and Wednesdays, 6 to 10, and then created a separate Friday class for 9 to 6. We just had a lot of students just continually telling us, or prospective students, that they just couldn't commit that much time because they couldn't give up family time and work time, to come back to school. All we did is I made a simple YouTube video that advertised exclusively to social media, and people shared it, and that was all that we did to gain additional students. So you can see the numbers here as the bars go up. In 2016, that was kind of our enrollment and retention. So that was right around 23 students in the 2016 cohort, which was the pre-flipped classroom. In 2017, it took quite a significant jump. Okay, so from 2016 to 2019 overall, we had a 58% enrollment increase. And that number could go higher, but we maxed out. We couldn't physically take any more students because our faculty and adjuncts, we were completely strapped. And with accreditation, that was all that we could do. So if we were able to get bigger programs, we could probably increase that enrollment even more. But we're at the point where we had to turn some students away because simply we were full. And also with that, you would think that flipping it, put more responsibility on the students, that maybe that could be a hindrance, but we've actually seen a 3% retention increase. We still have all the students who have a life happens moments of, death, divorces, marriages, kids, all kinds of those things that just pop into there, but still, and subjectively, the thing that I see the most is our students are far less stressed because they're not having to burden themselves. They provide a little bit more flexibility in their lives. In 2016, towards the end of that cohort, some of our students were very testy to one another, to say the least. And now it just seems like our students are much happier when they come to class. There's a lot less grumpiness in the classroom. So I think it's good just to free up some of that class. So hence the title of the presentation of Classroom, just making some more room. So attrition and some future action research. So when we did that first flip model, in 2017, our biggest attrition came from that Friday section. For whatever reason, the students thought that Friday was an easier way. They thought that that was different than Monday and Wednesday. So Friday morning is Monday evening's class, Friday afternoon is Wednesday evening's class. But for some reason, a lot of the students came into there and a lot of them had commitment issues. They came in and they thought all they had to do was class on Friday, that they thought they could fit in 1 day a week for class, and that's all that they could do. They couldn't have time to study, do homework, do clinicals, everything else. So as we went into 2018, we kind of worked with some of those students, got a little bit better, made sure on the forefront of it that all the students understood what they were getting themselves into. Kind of did a little bit more of an involved orientation process. Then in 2019, our orientation process got a lot more in-depth, bigger orientation groups, making them do more work on the forefront, a true orientation requirement. There was objectives, assignments they had to complete before they began, and made sure that they all completely understood, let them understand, and explain to them a lot more the difference between the two sections, and then our attrition evened out. So I believe we had all that stuff figured out to where the students knew there really wasn't any difference, there wasn't any shortcuts, making sure the students understood their commitment to the programs. Now let's talk some benefits about it. So it creates flexibility for those non-traditional students. And by the non-traditional, I mean the students who aren't living on campus right out of high school, that they're working, they've got family, they've got other obligations outside of the classroom. That is what we'll refer to as non-traditional. It also gives us more of a hands-on application, especially for our program, because as a paramedic, as a very, very hands-on program. So you need to teach that hands-on component, gives us some more flexibility into that. It allowed us to do those lab variations to create those two sections for our large service region. Also with these informative sessions, we critique those days' lesson plans so we have less waste of time. There's no use to beat the horse to death if you can evaluate at the beginning of class what they truly already know. And it's unique. That kind of catches students' eye where it's just a little bit different. They're looking for the new, the fashionable, and as of right now, this kind of seems to be the new trend. And like I said before, subjectively, less stress on the students because they're in a little bit more control of their education. Now the cons. It's pretty time intensive. So generally for a presentation, there's about a 4-to-1 ratio. So if I'm going to present a 30-minute presentation on EdPuzzle, that might take me 2 hours to build that. So that's creating a PowerPoint, recording it, stopping the recording, starting over on each slide because I've goofed up or I've stuttered or my phone rang or there's some kind of distraction. So generally that a 4-to-1. And again, with that, don't make crazy long presentations. These students don't have that attention span. So we generally target towards about 30 minutes. So that 4-to-1 gives us about 2 hours of work for that 30-minute presentation. It's not for every student. Our surveys over the past few years have shown about 75 to 80% of the students prefer this model, but again, it's not for everybody, but it targets the masses. And as our classrooms, that age gap gets smaller and smaller and the average age of the student gets lower, that preference gets higher and higher and higher and higher. And plus, as we develop it and it gets better, the approval rating goes up as well. It's a little bit ambiguous. You'll hear the term flipped classroom a lot. It's a very generic term, just such as a hybrid class. It's pretty ambiguous. A lot of people can use the same word, but they're actually meaning something a little bit different. It is addicting. Every class that I've been to about flipped classroom, it's almost like a cult. Like you've definitely drank the Kool-Aid and now you are a flipper. Okay, so there's this whole cult-like following of people who are flipping their classroom. There's no secret handshakes or anything yet that I know of. Maybe I just haven't got into that. But overall, it's just kind of like joining a frat. You'll get addicted to doing it this way. You'll have this whole new language that you'll be speaking. So hopefully that cleared up some things. There's another presentation that I'll have out on how to record some videos like this to begin working on your flipped material. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Stop by my office anytime or just shoot me an email. Have a good day.